Welcome to the video. I wanted to do a revision of the last days through the prophets, mainly looking at the books of Daniel, 2nd Esdras, and some other books that are very rare, Armenian visions, should we say, and I'll get into those a bit later. But I'm going to put it into the framework of history, and as much as I'm able to. I don't know everything, so we're going to, in this video, we're going to lay a foundation of the things that we do know and the things that are kind of irrefutable and generally agreed. Now, the first thing as we look at Revelation 17 is we have a description of the harlot riding the beast, which is a metaphor for the church and state. So the church has acquired secular power. So if you look at this timeline I made up, this is from the 1st to the 5th centuries. It's crucial to understand that the church and state were two separate things, and that the state used to tyrannize the church and used to martyr them because they would not adhere to the paganism, the polytheism of the Roman Empire. So this is taking the last days from the cross, 33 AD. And these are the main events, which are mentioned they're mentioned metaphorically and prophetically in the Revelation of John chapter 13 with the two beasts, which we did a video on. So I've got them down here as Leviathan and Behemoth. And I've also got them down here as Daniel had them written as the iron and the clay that mix. So when the iron and the clay mix, it's when the Roman Empire falls, okay? And Adosa, I think I spelled out or pronounced it right, Adosa, the Germanic king, takes over in 476 AD. So Rome was becoming weaker and weaker through a series of plagues, inflation and migration were the three things that caused it. And then we see the 10 barbarian successor kingdoms. So if we're looking at 2nd Esdras with the three-headed eagle, the three-headed eagle represents Rome and its empire and its power. And the three heads of the eagle, as it says, as for you seeing that the large head disappeared, this is one of the heads of the eagle, one of the kings shall die in his bed, but in agonies. But as for the two who remained, the sword shall devour them. For the sword of the one shall devour him who was with him. But he also shall fall by the sword in the last days. So, in this particular Armenian vision that I have, it mentions the three-headed eagle as well, which is really interesting because this can happen when you're looking at these secret texts, that the same thing can crop up again and again in different texts, which kind of solidifies the authenticity, shall we say, of these visions in prophecy. The different visions from different time frames kind of add up as a repetition. So let's establish then that they're falling by the sword. These kingdoms of the Roman Empire are falling by the sword, i.e. war, they're being conquered, is what is happening to the Roman Empire. So if we look at, you have the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. So here's the Eastern Roman Empire in its greatest extent in 555 AD, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, which was caused by the Western Roman Empire fell because of the Germanic tribes. Basically, they were starving, and they went and sacked Rome, and this was the cause of the fall. So here we're looking now at 650 AD. We can see the Visigoth kingdom is ruling Spain. We can see the Byzantine Empire, which is Asia Minor, is still standing, but we have the Muslims rising up. This is 650. So 610, Muhammad had that a vision where he was visited by Satan disguised as Gabriel. So we have now the Islamic conquests in the 7th century. So it says they crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, not far from me, and began to conquer the Iberian Peninsula using the Berber armies. So they're kind of like Algerians. And they conquered the Visigoths in Spain and took over. So this is the territories of what's called the Umayyad Caliphate, mentioned as the king of the south in the visions of Daniel. He says the king of the north and the king of the south. And it's basically Islam's conquest against Christendom. So we can see that they conquered Asia Minor, which is called Turkey now. So when this happened, when they conquered Constantinople in 1423, the Ottoman Turks caused all the intelligentsia to flee, and they went west into Italy and influenced what's called the Renaissance. And what's really important about this is they took Greek texts, ancient Greek scriptures, into the West, because at that time, 1423 to 15th century, everything was Latinized, and the church had corrupted the scriptures. So Erasmus created his own version of the Bible in columns, 3 columns. 1 column was Greek, 1 column was Latin, the 3rd column was his annotations, his interpretations of the text. So it's the 1519 Erasmus Greek New Testament, Greek Latin New Testament, sorry. So it says here, its production and legacy illuminate the intellectual climate of Western Europe and the growth of a new type of biblical scholarship. So this was the Bible that Martin Luther studied when he ended up writing what's called the 95 Theses, and he looked at Matthew 3, where the first thing Christ says on his evangelizing in the Holy Land is he says, "Repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." So this is an image of this 1519 Erasmus Greek Latin Bible. So Martin Luther used the Erasmus Bible, and the Protestant Reformation went from there. So as we read in like in the book of Daniel, it says that the beast is going to conquer the whole earth. So we can see this when we study in the wars between Islam and Christendom. It says here that in the 16th century, the rapid takeover of ocean routes worldwide ushered in a new age of European Christian power. So this is Christian power. Let's kind of like put it into terms of secular power. It resulted in a gradual encroachment on increasingly vast areas of uninhabited lands through a forceful combination of military, political, economic, and missionary activities. There we see Napoleon's brief conquest of Egypt. With that, Europeans embarked on a political military trajectory that would gradually make them colonial masters not only over majority Muslim countries, but over almost the entire planet. Okay, so I don't believe it's a planet, but everybody else seems to in the scholarship of the world. But what we're saying is this the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy, where that 4th beast was going to bring into subjection the entire world? It would seem so. So now we're coming now to the modern age, whereas it says, in addition, the Western dynamic spawned new compelling economic and political ideologies such as liberalism, socialism, communism, eventually spreading the Cold War to the rest of the non-Western world into newly formed nations that were already struggling to define themselves in the new post-colonial era. So we have this book, which was made in 1991, and is supposed to be the answer to the question of we need a common enemy. Now, people like Ronald Reagan raised this in the United Nations in the late 80s, that they wanted to unite humanity with a common enemy. So the goal of this book in particular was to outline a strategy for mobilizing the world's governments for environmental security and clean energy by purposefully converting the world from a military to a civil economy, tackling global warming and solving the energy problem, dealing with world poverty and disparities between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. So what this is basically the United Nations, which is a confederacy of world governments, wish to implement their kind of worldwide dictatorship. So the book says here, because of the sudden absence of traditional enemies, new enemies must be identified. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it is only through changed attitudes and behaviour that they can be overcome. The real enemy then is humanity itself. So we're not digressing by bringing this into the modern realm, because as we can see, Daniel, in his visions, it shows that this is going to be a tyranny. It says in Daniel chapter 11, an impious tyranny is going to be set up. And it's going to, like with the iron, it's as strong as iron. And it's going to break in pieces the whole earth. So, again, from this book, it's saying, halfway down, it says the need is for simultaneous attack on all of them. As it says, these problems that they have created for people to be bombarded with this modern day mass media, they're going to go with this kind of psychological warfare and attack everybody with them, because humanity is the enemy. So if we look at where is the root of this, if we're looking at Mystery Babylon, as it says in Revelation 18:2, she's the habitation of demons. She's fallen. She's the fallen church. She's riding the beast. She has secular power. And again, in Revelation, it says, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come from the mouth of the dragon, the mouth of the beast, and the mouth of the false prophet. They're all coming from Rome. All 3 are in Rome. They're the spirits of devils which go forth to the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day, which is Armageddon. So we can see here, again, this is from Enoch, the works of the devils. As it says, they shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. And again, Ezekiel 38, if this is purely eschatological, pertaining to the gathering to Armageddon, you will devise an evil plan. You will say, I will go up against a land of unwalled villages. So if we were to comprehend this, an unwalled village, there's no defence. If you haven't walled your village off, according to how ancient peoples used to live in tribes, a wall was always a defence against an enemy. So if you're the guardian of a nation, you've turned on your own people. The people who are, as it says, I will come against the tranquil people who dwell securely, all of them living without walls, bars or gates. So clearly coming against the saints, they're the guardians. They've been put there as a guardian, like as it says in 2nd Esdras. God, Christ created these 4 great beasts to rule over these eras, these epochs, and that the guardians ought to protect the people. But in these latter times, in the build up to Armageddon, where the devils have gone out to the kings to bring them to battle, it's the guardians that have turned against humanity, because they have been infiltrated by demons. Again, in Ezekiel 38, Babylon is replaced by the name of Gog. So as it says, I'll bring you against my land. See, a lot of people, especially in the false church system, take that as a literal assault on the present modern day land of Israel, which was the 1947 hoax. He's actually talking about Israel as a people. It says, I will summon a sword against Gog. So we read that earlier in Esdras about how they would fall by the sword. So this is bringing me to my point where it's showing, like in Revelation 17:16, that the 10 horns of the beast, 10 horns of the beast will hate its rider, the harlot or the prostitute, and will make her desolate and will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So we can see then that there's going to be an occasion where the state, the secular power, turns on Rome and destroys it. So we've established quite a few things so far. Let's have a look at the Dead Sea Scrolls commentary on Habakkuk by an unknown theologian and how he interprets scripture, because I think we're going to look at this one and the commentary on Hosea that he gets more right than wrong. I mean, it says in Habakkuk, it says, for still the prophecy is for a specific period. It testifies of that time and does not deceive. His interpretation is this means that the last days will be long, much longer than the prophets had said. I'm not sure I agree with that bit because the prophets are accurate, for God's revelations are truly mysterious. The point is that I'm including this is it's backing up my case that the last days are for a long time. And if we look at the book of Enoch, according to the 10 weeks, we can see that from weeks 6 to 8 are what's called the last days. Now, 8 minus 6 is 2. Okay, so that's 2 weeks of the last days. We know that the week stands for 1,000 years. So we know that the last days are going to be 2,000 years according to the book of Enoch. There's other prophets as well that say it's going to be 2,000 years. So, if we look at Revelation 16, now this is amazing. It's been in front of my eyes all this time and I never realised it up until doing this video. If we look at the translation first, because the translation is crucial, because the King James Version gets it wrong. At the end of verse 12 of Revelation 16, it says, the kings of the East, the way of the kings of the East. But as we know, if you look at the Greek, and the Berean Literal Bible gets it correct on Bible Herd, it says kings of the rising of the sun. The difference being is that this gives it a different meaning. It's saying that one kingdom is going to diminish and another rise up. So like in the other mistranslation with the Gospels, where Mary Magdalene comes to the tomb and it's about to dawn, the sun's about to rise, it's talking about another kingdom is going to rise up. It's a bit like parabolic of darkness is going to pass and dawn is going to bring in a new era of light. So that is basically the meaning of Revelation 16:12, where it's talking about the sixth angel pouring the vial upon the great river Euphrates. Okay, because look, the two verses are together. What we're going to do the exegesis on now, 12 and 13 are linked. My opinion is that verse 12 is talking about the Reformation, and verse 13 is talking about the Counter-Reformation. I've never heard anybody else talking about this, but I'm convinced by it from doing, I've wrote a book on it, I've studied it over and over again, but it's only just starting to click what this is talking about. So if we look at verse 12, we have the Euphrates dries up. Okay. Now, again, if we consult the Dead Sea Scrolls, the unknown theologian who does a commentary on Hosea, as it reads here, it says, he rebukes the sea and dries it up. The meaning of this passage, the sea, is all that text missing, and drying them up, it means to pass judgment on them, to wipe them off the face of the earth. Again, he dries up all the rivers. Commentary, this means, text missing, with all their rulers, when their rule comes to an end. this is bang on. This is what prophetic interpretation is all about. It's interpreting the parable, because the prophet's talking in parables, and there's lots of false church theologians saying that the Euphrates drying up is literal, which it's not talking about that, and because they put it in the category of futurism. So this is not futurism. 13:14, as we looked at before, following 12, following the drying up of the Euphrates, what happens? The unclean spirits go out of the mouth of Rome and go out to deceive the kings of the earth and bring them to Armageddon. So we look at the Counter-Reformation, defined as the reaction of the Roman Catholic Church to the Reformation, reaffirming the veneration of saints and the authority of the Pope, in brackets, to which Protestants objected. Many leaders were Jesuits. See, so to me, 12 is talking about Rome. The previous verse with the Euphrates drying up is talking about Rome losing its power. Why did it lose its power? Because, as we already established, what happened? Islam conquered Constantinople. They bring the Greek scriptures in. Everybody starts comparing them to the Latin, which was corrupted. And look, we're really now look. The church was corrupt. It was selling indulgences, which was basically if you had sinned, you could buy an indulgence, and it was linked to this idea of purgatory, that you would not go to hell. Okay, but they wanted to raise money to build a new basilica. That was why they were selling indulgences, and again, the desire of people to read the Bible in the language they spoke at home rather than in Latin. And with the invention of the printing press, so we had the Gutenberg press, so the technology of the age came in as well. That was another reason why Rome started to lose its power. The Bible got into the hands of non-Roman Catholic Church people, or people from the Roman Catholic Church who wanted to reform the corruption of A, Scripture, and B, the traditions of the Church, such as Martin Luther, for example. And you had this led to what's called the 30 Years' War in Germany. So, again, what causes the Roman Catholic Church to lose its power, i.e. the Euphrates drying up? And so, if you didn't, I didn't explain, the Euphrates was the river that supplied the ancient city of Babylon. So we have this replacement, it's called replacement theology. So the name of Rome is replaced with the name of Babylon. Israel went into captivity because of sin. So that was the idea of the reason behind the name of Babylon. So rivers always supplied the strength to the city. If the river dried up, you couldn't put all the goods downriver to feed all the people in the city, and all the merchants couldn't trade, etc. So that's the metaphor explained. Again, the desire of rulers such as Henry VIII to break free from the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church was another reason why Rome lost its power. He wanted to marry, and the Roman Catholic Church forbade it. Okay, so the effects of Protestantism, the establishment of many Protestant churches, groups and movements, including Lutheranism, Calvinism and Anglicanism. So Rome was, as we saw, it came to power as ruling, it came to secular power by ruling those 10 Germanic tribes, as we saw when classical Rome fell, because those territories within the Roman Empire had already converted to Nicene Christianity, and so Rome, was the rider of that beast. But it starts to lose its power, its secular power. The establishment of many Protestant church groups, translation of the Bible into German, French, English, and other languages. Again, see, the layman was not a Latin speaker, so it was the bishops in the churches who gave the sermons in Latin. They were all sitting in the pews and being damned with all the apostasy of the Roman Catholic Church and observing all the Baal worship, which was disguised as Nicene Christianity, such as Easter, Christmas and Sunday worship. So the Counter-Reformation, how the Roman Catholic Church came back to try and revive itself, is what verse 13 is all about, in my opinion, because it says, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. They're the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth to the kings of the earth, and the whole world to gather them to battle of that great day of God Almighty. Because what happens next is the Jesuits, right? The Jesuits are the frog-like demons that go out to all the kings of the earth. The Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits, is a religious order of the Catholic Church, headquarters in Rome. It was founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola and 6 companions with the approval of Pope Paul III. The society is engaged in evangelization and apostolic ministry in 112 nations. So this is, the society also originated in Spain. They were the ones who wrote futurism and preterism as a means to interpreting the book of Revelation. Interestingly enough, it was futurism that basically destroyed the Reformation, the Protestantism within certain countries like England, because whereas they knew that the Roman Catholic Church was the Antichrist, doctrines such as preterism and futurism, preterism said that Jerusalem was Mystery Babylon, whereas futurism said that Antichrist hadn't yet come, so it couldn't be the Roman Catholic Church. So in all this confusion and false theology, the Reformation just dissolved. So you have members of the Society of Jesus are expected to accept orders to go anywhere in the world. So what they do is they go and befriend the political high-ups, the kings, etc. There's probably whole books being written on it about what they did. There's plenty of information online. Again, kind of similar to the old Crusader orders like the Knights Templar. This is basically what the Catholics had. They had like these military orders who, for example, the Knights Templar, they went to Jerusalem to escort pilgrims, but they didn't take any money. They lived without money. But ironically, they became international bankers. So we have the Society of Jesus, who are also called the Jesuits, who are kind of similar in that they were basically evangelists, and they went out to convert all these nations back to the Roman Catholic Church. And we can see here Tony Blair signing Britain away to the Roman Catholic Church, as we see. I don't know which pope it was, but he's a 20-foot tall bronze sculpture of him behind. And here we have, this is George VI, he was the father of the recently deceased Queen Elizabeth II in his full Masonic regalia. The Jesuits infiltrated Freemasonry, as I was talking about, the Knights Templar. And this is how they maintain power, because the kings are within these societies of the Roman Catholic Church. So, again, look at this cartoon. It's like 200 years old. They knew who the Antichrist was, but it's been forgotten more and more in recent times with the descent into sin. So this is going to be the end of this particular video. I may do a part 2 when I continue, but it's kind of interesting to me to read Revelation 16 in this context, which I believe it is in, because you can see that the 6th angel has poured its vial. And it's interesting how we can see through the last days how the Roman Catholic Church is, more recently the Roman Catholic Church is afflicted, or the beast is afflicted by, first of all, the first beast Leviathan. What are the things that make it fall? It was plague, it was inflation, it was migration and war against the Germanics. Then we see the Germanics take over around about the 5th century. And, you had things such as the Ostrogothic papacy, for example. But it was the Germanics, and this is the iron and clay that we see in the visions of Daniel. It's a divided kingdom. It's partly strong, partly weak. It wants to unite itself. Everything about this Antichrist kingdom, it's all trying to unite itself, strengthen itself. And according to the book of Daniel, it was doing so initially through marriage. So the royal families of these 10 different horns of the beast, because there's 2 different sets of horns of the beast. I could digress by going into that, but the second set of the horns of the beast after Leviathan comes up from the abyss and is like a ghost Leviathan.
they were trying to unite through marriage. So famously, with the Reformation, you had King Henry VIII. He was married to, did he want to divorce Catherine of Aragon? I think that's correct. Aragon's a territory in northern Spain, so they were trying to unite England and Spain. That's basically how the divided kingdom tried to unite itself through the dogmas of the Roman Catholic Church. So, again, as we go into the latter stages where we're talking about how it starts to lose its power, you look at territorially, it lost a lot of territories to Islam, didn't it? We showed the map there how Islam took over Hispania, it took over Asia Minor. The territories dwindled, but then we saw how the beast, Rome, came back with the imperialism and the seafaring, etc. So we're seeing how that it gets weakened. But the main thing that weakened it, and the main thing that interests me, is the theological battle, because theologically Rome had all the cards where it was all Latin translations. The layman wasn't really privy to the Bible, but then what happens? Constantinople becomes conquered. The Greek scholars come in. You get the Greek translations compared to the Latin, and then it takes off, like we said, with the Reformation, again losing its power. So really interesting. And if you like the video, give it a like and comments if there's any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.